Hi everybody. Sorry I can't be here today. We're going to try and carry on anyways. We are working on our Scratch platformer game, and so far we've been working on getting the mechanics of the character to work correctly so that it can travel up and down slopes and run into walls. And when it jumps, it collides with the ceiling and doesn't go through. So these are all good things, and they've been pretty complicated, but thanks for sticking with it and doing your best to understand what's going on. We got some problems still. Whisker jumping is potentially a feature, not a bug, but for the most part, that's silly. And of course, we talked about how we're going to solve that, and you can do that today. It's one of the things I want you to work on. So we talked about the solution, and that is to separate the character, right now it's just one sprite, into two sprites. One of the sprites is going to be a simple rectangle that will be, essentially what should interact with the ground. So you want to draw that, accordingly so that it fits with your costumes. And then the other sprite's going to be the costumes and the code for doing animations. So one sprite has got all the gravity code that we've done so far and a black, or it doesn't have to be black, but just a rectangular shaped costume, or whatever shape actually is appropriate for your character. The other one is your animations. We're going to do animations later on. It's another benefit of doing this in two separate sprites, is you can animate things after the fact. And if this was, professional software development, you'd ship that off to your animation team and they'd worry about that. But that's okay. We're going to be the animation team as well, because I know some of you probably will really enjoy that. So that's something to work on today, is to get your character broken into two sprites. The other thing we're going to work on today is working on the world. As it is right now, our world is, a white fog with a green line, and it's pretty ugly. So, I'm not going to be able to help you with the art aspect of things, but what I can help you with is learning about how to figure out how to make the world look better, and of course, getting it so that there's multiple, rooms or scenes in your world. We're restricted to this size, and you can get a lot more out of this size than I'm getting out of it in this practice project here, a demo project. My character is quite large. You could shrink down the character and get a lot more fine-grained room for hallways and platforms and things like that. But what we want to do is make a spot somewhere on the map where when we go to it, we'll advance to the next scene. So our ground is going to kind of contain all of our different types of terrain. And our backdrop is going to be all the pretty things about that terrain, all the, making this look like hills and cliffs and houses and castles and whatever it is you want to draw in. So I won't spend too much time in making the scenes beautiful. Just when you go to edit your backdrop, just try to approximate your contour, or upload an image that is something that you want to have as a scene that will be the backdrop. I mean, maybe it's a level from a video game or a screenshot from a video game. Maybe it's just a picture of something that's really cool looking that you want to be able to jump around in. Either way, feel free to use that. I don't have too much time for that, so I'll just sketch in hastily this lovely hill here. We'll draw a hill, just approximate it. Oh, look at that lovely hill. And you can see over here it updates as we go. I was like, well, kind of missed. So, I'll go back and erase it and try and do a better job and so on. I'm not really going to try to do too hard of a job because, it's just not my forte. So I'd probably download a picture. But just for this expedience sake, we'll make some kind of a thing here. Here's a hill. Here's some land. Oh gosh, it's so ugly. It's embarrassing. It's going on YouTube. That's okay. Here is a house or something. Here's a door. No, we don't want a door. Maybe this is just a big obstacle. Oh, I should have made a pipe, like in Mario. Here is a pipe. Oh my gosh, this is the ugliest thing ever. That's okay. It'll be entertaining for you to watch this video. I just started a whole new series, Drawing with Mr. Pelche. So I don't know. You can move things around, of course, just like in any graphic editing software. That's pretty good. And of course, what's going to happen with ground? So getting away from drawing, because gosh, I really shouldn't do too much of that. here's what our level looks like. This is backdrop 1, and now the character, it's not matching perfectly. I'll let you guys worry about matching it perfectly. But hey, look, it's sort of, we're definitely interacting with the environment, or getting the illusion of interacting with the environment fairly well. Oh, I'm on the cloud. Wow. Special. I don't know why I suddenly have the urge to fill this with blue, but I'm going to resist the urge, and we're just going to work in a black and white world. Ground is ghosted out, so we'll put that as a trigger. And also, when we get to some sort of sprite, we want to switch to another level. So what we can do is, in each scene, we can have sprites that are sort of the indicators to go to the next level. They can be invisible too. You don't have to make it look like there's something there if you don't want there to be. So, that's entirely up to you how you want to do that. You can make it visible. Some sort of like indicator, like a flashing arrow or something would be cool. So that flashing arrow is going to be remarkably similar to the kind of things we did in the Escape the Room project. So we're going to have that sprite. So I'll just draw one really fast. I'll make it a circle. I probably should make an arrow just to remind myself of what it is or which direction it's going. And what we'll do is, instead of seeing if we click on that circle, like the arrows in our previous 2 projects ago, we're going to make it if it touches the sprite, their character sprite. And if it does, we're going to make a backdrop switch, and then we're going to link the ground and all of its different costumes, because we'll have a different costume for each terrain that corresponds to the stage. We'll make them switch together. So just immediately switch. And we should probably also teleport the cat to the right place. Make it go to the next scene or whatever in the right place, so they can spawn it wherever we want to. So that's the idea. And in terms of the code for that, it's just a collision. Yeah, we're probably not going to use green flag triggers in the long run. Eventually we want to have an intro screen and that kind of stuff, so we'll probably have a broadcast trigger here. But just for demonstration purposes, let's put it as a green flag, and we'll say forever if touching sprite 1, tragically named sprite 1. I should, name it appropriately. I'll call it character. I don't want it to always be a cat. One day it'll be something else. So if touching character, then we're gonna do something based on what backdrop we have. So I'll set up a simple structure here. I can say, if this is backdrop. Oh, I guess we can do that from looks. If backdrop name equals, the current backdrop name, I don't know what it is, it's just a default, probably backdrop 1. Let's name this, what's a good name for this terrible looking place? Ugly Land. So this is Ugly Land is our first scene, and we can say, now if backdrop name equals Ugly Land, and I have to preserve capitalization, then I'm going to switch backdrop to the next backdrop. And I only have Ugly Land right now. So then I can go over here and draw a new backdrop that gets switched to. So let's make, paint a new backdrop. This will be, I don't know, Cliffland. I got a 0 creativity. Cliffland. Here's Cliffland. And Cliffland's going to have a cliff over here. And it's going to have, oh my gosh, a hole. And there'll be something over here. Who knows how to get there, because it looks like it's pretty impossible. So that's great. There's my Cliffland. And then I want a ground that matches Cliffland. So conveniently I could pretty much just take this costume and drag it over here to the ground one. It doesn't really matter what color it is. Maybe I'll just fill it with green to make sure I'm not confusing myself or other people. Actually, that might be hard to do. Let's see if I can do that. Oh, that's not what I want to do. I wanted to drag the mouse. Silly me, trying to drag a mouse in Scratch. It doesn't really matter. I fill it with green. it didn't quite get green, but it doesn't really matter because we're checking not collision with green, but we're checking collisions, with the sprite itself. And then the other thing is to get rid of all this white. My gosh, the white is too much. Man, clicking isn't easy apparently. So I'll get rid of all that. So it's just this is what's in our ground sprite. So we'll have our lovely, cliff land here. Let's put some color in. Yeah, put in. Oh my, let's get crazy. Let's put some gradients in there. Oh, gosh. Oh man, so good. And ground. Is it centered? I guess it is. That's great. So now what we can do is, we can have our stage it switch to Cliffland when we touch the this arrow sprite, or the sprite that takes us to the next scene right here in this script. So let's start it over. Oh, hey, if I have a green flag trigger to restart things, I should probably make it restart the backdrop. So switch to backdrop ugly land here when I start the game. And I'm impaled on a cloud. Details. Oh, look at that. My ground sprite's not the right one. So that's another thing to do. When I press the green flag trigger, I should not only set the ghost effect, but I should also switch to the correct costume. So we'll switch to, not to Cliffland, but to Ugly Land. So both my ground is on Ugly Land and my stage is on Ugly Land. And my cat's, of course, in a terrible spot right now, so let's get that over here. Ground. Cliffland. Oh, this is costume 1. Let's name that Ugly Land. And then switch to Ugly Land. So I press green flag. And I'm on the Ugly Land terrain. Let's just set the ghost effect to 0 so you can see what's going on. So I'm on Ugly Land for both the ground sprite, so the thing that's detecting our terrain, and for the backdrop. And if I walk along, and I jump up here, I press that, and it switches. Our ground didn't switch. So, what do we need to do to make the ground switch? Our cliff backdrop switched, but the sprite itself didn't switch. So, what's the answer to that? Well, we can have a trigger inside of here that is, events. So when backdrop switches to Cliffland, I can switch our costume to Cliffland. That's backdrop. Switch costume to Cliffland. So when the backdrop switches in ground, we'll also make the costume switch to the right one. So now if we do this again, start over again. So we got our ground is in Ugly Land and our backdrop is in Ugly Land. And if I hit the trigger, then my ground is now in Cliffland and my backdrop is in Cliffland. You'll notice that the ground sprite isn't actually in the right place. So, I would be foolish to try and click and drag it up, but we'll have to set its position as well. That's something else that we'll have to do. I bet if I did that, then the other one is broken. Switch. Oh, sorry, this should be switch costume to Cliffland. Ugly Land. I've already gotten confused. There we go. So it's kind of positioned poorly. Looks like costume centers are going to be a bit of an issue. I got my costume centers a little bit messed up here. So going back and forth between the two Clifflands and Ugly Land, it's not so great. I can simply just adjust my costume center so everything matches up. It's not going to be perfect right now, but it'll be a little bit closer, and I'll just keep on working to perfect that. I just got to move it down a bit more. The last thing is, of course, when we switch to a backdrop, the cat shouldn't be on the other side. Like if I switch over here, where should the cat be? It should show up on this side. So that's the last thing that we can do is in the character itself, you can have some code. There's not much room here, but you can say when the backdrop switches to Cliffland, you can tell it to go to some particular coordinates. So I could say go to these coordinates. These are the starting coordinates for the game for that map. So here I'm gonna go over here, jump up into Cliffland, and oh look, I appear on the other side. Sorry, I jump from Uglyland to Cliffland, and there I am. And now I can fall down, and this would be a great place to put another one of these dots. This dot can now be down here, and it can trigger. If I fall down the cliff, maybe it takes me to I don't know. Pitland or something, probably something more exciting than Pitland. I hope for your projects, but you can have that also move when the backdrop switches, and you can have more than one of these scene switching dots. You can have multiple ones, and you just have to position them in the right places and in the correct backdrops, and everything will work out nicely and smoothly. So as you can see, it's I don't think there's a lot of code involved in this. We'll just review it really quickly. We have, first of all, the stage probably should be set to its default backdrop at the beginning. Our ground, actually I'll mention just before that, I go to the ground, our backdrops will have just different backdrops, and it's important to name the names. Names that make sense. Backdrop 1, backdrop 2, backdrop 3. Could get confusing if you have a good word for this, like castle or cliff or something like that. Then it'll be easier for you to avoid mistakes. So our backdrops have multiple scenes, and our ground sprite has multiple costumes that correspond to those different scenes and the backdrops. I've named them the exact same thing, Uglyland, Cliffland, the same as the backdrops, so that I know exactly what to switch to. And then in the code, they basically, when I press green flag, I ghost it out, so we don't have to see the terrain. We just see the lovely backdrop. And we switch to the default costume, which is Uglyland, because that's where we start. And then I have this, when backdrop switches to a specific backdrop, I switch to the corresponding costume that is the ground for that scene. And then we also have this scene switching sprite. We're just waiting to see if we touch a character, the character. Then we check to see what our backdrop's named, and then we switch to the right backdrop. We're going to have lots of these, so we'll have another one called, one for Cliff Land, and it will, we haven't drawn that backdrop yet, but it will presumably switch to Pit Land or whatever it is that we want to have happen. Also, we have our character that should teleport when we switch to the different types of scenes. So Cliffland, we're going to go to X and Y, which is the starting place for Cliffland. So that's the technique there. We've also noticed costume centers can be a problem. Lining everything up can be a problem. So all these problems will take time. So don't waste any time today. Get started on making your project great. Feel no urge to, if you are not an artist, to somehow make this project, perfect art, because honestly, it's not about the art, it's about the gameplay. But if you are an artist, go nuts and have a lot of fun with it and draw beautiful backdrops. If you're not an artist, you might want to search on the internet for a bit for just nice scenes that you could build into a platformer. Or just draw something that's kind of like, got some character to it, but, I didn't do much work here, but I can see a game being fairly lovely just with some basic hand-drawn stuff. You could put in lots of stuff in here, I think. Alright, so good luck today, and I hope everything goes smoothly. Bye.